welcome to everybody. I'm David Choate. I'm a Vice President with the Ontario Centres of Excellence. I hope you enjoyed this morning's sessions, those of you that were here. This afternoon's presentations are going to be an equally eclectic group of organizations giving you a taste of what they do. And as with this morning and yesterday, the intent of this really is just to spark interest, make a connection, and all of our speakers will be around after their presentations to chat to you and answer any detailed questions that you have. Our first innovation partner presentation comes from the City of Toronto. And we're pleased to welcome Katherine, Roos, the manager of Enterprise Toronto. Katherine has personally counseled hundreds of small businesses as a business advisor, consultant, and trainer. She's hands-on experience managing her own business and has served small business owners in senior positions in both public and private organizations. A small business manager with the City of Toronto's Economic Development and Culture Division, Katherine oversees programs that serve more than 35,000 entrepreneurs, prospective entrepreneurs, and small business owners every year. She provides input to economic development policy and facilitates linkages within the city's diverse business community. As I said, after the presentation, there'll be a chance for questions in the group and then questions after. So, welcome, Katherine.
Hi, can everybody see me? So how many people are actually from Toronto? Okay, a few people, half. Okay, good. So I'm one of about 250 people working in economic development for the City of Toronto. So there's a lot of us here. So I'll speak from my perspective. First of all, I think it's really fantastic to have the OCE Discovery held in Toronto every year. We like to think we're a pretty innovative city, and we do consider ourselves a partner to all these organizations that are here that are helping to build the next generation of companies and employers. So let me see. Is this what I'm supposed to press to get to the next slide? Okay. Okay, so in economic development culture of the city, there's a number of business units that act on the front lines directly supporting small businesses. Enterprise Toronto is the program that I manage that serves startups and micro businesses. We also have very important, of course, in economic development, a business retention and expansion group, business improvement areas. Many people don't realize that's actually a Toronto export, that the first business improvement area in the world was created right here in Toronto. We have a business incubation program that we're doing a lot of work around, and of course investment attraction. These are all things that we're responsible for dealing with in our division. So just two quick slides, and I realized that I forgot to put in the most up-to-date version of this. A lot of people don't realize, because of the number of big towers that we have on Bay Street, but we actually have the highest rate of self-employment in the country and perhaps in North America, and we also have the highest rate of new business starts as compared to CMAs across the country. So there's an incredible amount of nascent business activity, entrepreneurial activity going on in the City of Toronto, and we know that innovation is often more likely to occur in those micro businesses. So all told, Enterprise Toronto, which is the program that I run, we have about 300,000 micro businesses. That includes the self-employed as well as employers with fewer than 10, micro businesses with fewer than 10 employees that we're responsible for supporting. And the whole idea is we help everybody, and we hope that many of those businesses turn into the innovators that you see here in this room today. So what do? We offer all kinds of business planning assistance. We help people get their businesses registered. We offer free business plan sessions, a wide range of learning opportunities and networking opportunities, more than 150 free seminars a year, as well as regulatory advice, et cetera. And one of the most important things we do, I believe, is make referrals. So if we find somebody, and frequently we find a young student who has a wonderful idea that they've been developing as a result of, graduate work or some ideas that they've been working out with a bunch of buddies from a class, and they're not aware of the technology commercialization programs in their school, or they didn't know about Entrepreneurship 101 at Mars, or any of the other great things that you see illustrated here. And so often we're making referrals to those other great programs that are going on in the city. Whoops. So business incubation. The City of Toronto funds and supports in many different ways a number of business incubators. Mars, of course, is a flagship for innovation, but we also have the Toronto Business Development Centre, which is known across the country for community economic development programs. We've got the fashion incubator, the food business incubator. Those are two important sectors here in the city. The Centre for Social Innovation is increasingly gaining international recognition. Artscape, of course, does some very important work in Toronto. And, you know, the Digital Media Zone, I think that's the city's darling right now. And we love working with that organization at Ryerson. Anyway, there is actually an innovation network in the city with about 40 entities that in some form or another are supporting innovation and micro-business development in the city. And those organizations range from libraries and community centers with youth programs and all kinds of things going on in the city, all stimulating that micro-business activity. So business expansion, retention and expansion, of course, is important. We are being recognized increasingly as an ICT hub. We are being known for the mobile media, where we've been known for a century for innovation in the biomedical field, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's important for us to maintain that reputation, but also to be attracting new organizations to supplement the ecosystem here. So very important work that they do. They assist larger companies with location and relocation, advise businesses on government programs, and we do have some grant programs as well for those businesses, including a sort of a concierge program, you know, the Imagination Manufacturing Innovation Technology Program, various rebate programs, et cetera. So, sector development. A good number of the staff in economic development are focusing on key sectors in Toronto that offer maximum opportunity for business development. So, of course, I hope most of you have seen the ICT Hub report that was published late last fall about the ICT cluster in Toronto. We're third in North America after Silicon Valley and New York, and we're quite proud of that. The film and television industry, of course, has been very strong for many years in the city. The green economy is an emerging sector, and education. We've got some of the best academic institutions in the world, and they're producing some of the most exciting innovations, as you see here. Anyway, these are the many different sectors that we focus on. And then, of course, a couple of years ago, the regime at the time decided that we needed to spend more time attracting investment to the City of Toronto. And so Invest Toronto was created and spun out from the city. And they travel the world telling people about the incredible resources, how incredible the people are, how talented the innovators are here in the City of Toronto. So how does this all add up? Well, this is being tweeted all over the place. Again, I hope most people have seen this PricewaterhouseCoopers study that was just released, I think probably last week, Cities of Opportunity. And the City of Toronto is ranked second in the world in terms of our livability, et cetera. And so programs that may not at first glance seem directly contributing to economic development, like streetscape improvement programs in our business improvement areas or cultural events like Winterlicious. The fact is that those kinds of programs make the City of Toronto one of the best places to live. It means we keep smart people, we keep innovative people, and innovative people want to move here to build more creative businesses. So all of the things we do at the City of Toronto, we believe that we're definitely an important partner in the innovation landscape in Ontario. And if you have any questions at all, I would be pleased to answer them. Thank you.
Our next presentation here is from the Health Technology Exchange, or HTX. And here to present is Ben Matthews, and I'm just going to introduce him briefly, and then we'll get right to his presentation. Ben's over 10 years' experience in life science financing, licensing, and spin-off development. Prior to HTX, he was an analyst in a biotechnology and pharmaceutical venture capital fund with investments in both the public and private companies. And as you would expect, Ben has all of the skill sets that enable him to do a great job with that, and exactly the right background to come and talk to us today. So without further ado, Ben.
Thanks, David. Okay, I guess well, I guess I am here to talk to you about HTX and what we do and why we exist, and go through it. So HTX, a brief history. We were originally funded in the start of 2004 by the Ministry of Research and Innovation. It was created to accelerate medtech commercialization. From 2004 to 2009, we had about $7 million through various programs, which were basically to incent collaboration and drive incremental improvement in medical technologies within Ontario. This was done through grants to institutions and hospitals, and that partnered with companies that had those technologies in the medical technology space. In April of 2010, we launched our new program called HTCP, which is the Health Technology Commercialization Program, and that was created through a lot of stakeholder feedback, not only with the companies, the institutions, but other funders and institutions and government. And it was really created to address that valley of death for small and medium enterprises in the medtech space within Ontario. The HTCP, a total of $21 million, so 3 times the money we had before, and this is now changed, and we provide loans to those small and medium enterprises, as well as we provide grants to multinational enterprises to bring them back to Ontario and create large centers of research and development, whereas mostly now they really only have their sales and marketing departments here in Canada. And for these loans and within these grants to M&Es, we want to help advance innovative technologies in the medtech space. So medtech, what do we look at? We basically look at medical diagnostics, medical devices, e-health, health IT, and assistive technologies. I don't know if everyone can read that, but there's various components in that, whether it's point-of-care devices and diagnostics, mobility within assistive, EMR innovation, or mobile health. And even in some of these cases, you see that there's a cross-link, whether it's diagnostics and medical devices, or even in e-health and assistive, where you have home care that can be delivered by mobile technologies. So this is the space in which we exist. We don't touch in anything with biopharma, so if there's drugs related, or if it goes through that regulatory process, we strictly stick within the medtech space, and I'll go through why we stick there for the next. Oh no, actually, I'm going to talk about what we do. So there's 2 things we do. We provide capital to companies, and we do ecosystem development of the medtech sector within Ontario. So providing that capital through the various programs on the left, we provide low interest loans, anywhere from 4 to 5%, or we provide convertible debt through a syndicate. And that goes to these innovative medtech companies that generally have a potential for long-term job creation and economic growth in Ontario. So usually if they can get to a run rate of revenue about $5 million in 5 years, that's kind of what we look for. We want not only that job growth, but long-term economic benefit to Ontario. The other thing we do is try and work with the various players and constituents of our ecosystem. So whether that's the providers, the payers, whether that's venture investors, whether that's consultants, sales and marketing experts, we work with those people in our sector to help get those companies to the stage where they need what they need to do. So if they're missing someone with regulatory expertise, oftentimes we know those people that we can introduce to them and help them get that expertise so that they can get their product up to market, or at least address those particular gaps that they don't have in with their management expertise. So as I said, one of the things that we were created for was to help create jobs within Ontario, and it's a critical component, because if you look at this graph, if you see, I guess right here, although 45,000 medtech jobs within Canada, it's a high value, high quality job creation. So this gives we have a lot of people within the university research sector, so there are a lot of graduate students. This gives them an opportunity to move back into the commercial area and have jobs that return a lot of capital back to the government of Ontario through taxes. So we want to create those high value jobs within an innovative sector. The other reason we exist, or why we have that capital, is the progression of idea to product to market needs financing. And one of the things we've seen over the past few years is if seeing those red areas, in that generation of a product and that commercialization of the product, there's a gap in that financing, and we exist to help fill that gap and help companies get from that early stage product development all the way to market. And this has been specifically exacerbated in the past few years by the funding gaps created by the dearth of venture capital within Ontario. And this graph is pretty typical of what we've seen in Canada, and that continues sort of on an even level back into 2010. And this is VC investment in Canada over the past, I guess, 15 years. And this particular graph is matched exactly by when you look at venture investing within life sciences. So you can pretty much overlay the same graph, except at smaller amounts, because that other money will be going to other sectors. But we've seen a significant decrease in the venture capital available to these companies, and that's one of the reasons why we exist, to help potentially fill that gap. But also what we do is we de-risk that investment by current investors. So they may not go and buy themselves, but they know that we're provide that financing to that company as well. They'll come in on top because now they know that that company has more financing than they previously saw. So in generation of innovation within SMEs follows a fairly common model, where you have those original startup costs and expenditure, and then once you have that product, you'll drive into revenue growth and product sales. And this is important because this is another reason why we look at medtech and why we think medtech company growth and innovation is an important factor. Because medtech requires a lot less capital to get to exit. So if you look at the typical product development and innovation development within companies, there will always be this sort of loss first as you're generating that new technology. And you can see here that biotech generally takes around $60 to $80 million to get to your exit. That's not necessarily to get to market. We know that's much higher in the biotech space, but that's generally what you're going to need to get to at least a decent exit. In the IT, it can be anywhere from $1 to $5 million. Very low capital costs, mainly because it doesn't require the specialized equipment, doesn't require those clinical trials. So medtech, not only do you create those great jobs, but you're also creating. You also have a lot less capital required, anywhere from $5 to $15 million, to get to that point where you can either exit or you can actually have a product in the market. And that's especially true of companies that we see in the health IT and e-health sector. And the other reason why we think medtech is attractive is that you get better returns than biopharma. On the left is from Cambridge Associates, their comparison of medtech and biopharma returns. And although those are very similar, so if you have the same amount of money invested in a medtech venture fund as a biopharma, the returns will be very similar. The difference is the variance in the biopharma returns is much greater. So it is all of the met because it's much riskier, higher capital, and so you'll see those returns have a lot more variance in medtech. So in medtech venture investing, much smaller capital required, very similar returns to the biopharma, where you're getting anywhere from 12 to 20% IRR. And then if you look at the public sector, the bottom line that you see is the S&P and 500 pharma and the S&P 500. The top line is equipment, in vitro diagnostics and devices. So on the public side, medical devices have seen a lot greater success, and they're actually the top performing sector in the public markets over the past 10 years. Finally, the other thing we look at is that medtech permeates the healthcare system. If you look at the blue part of the graph, that's drugs and physicians, which are the gray part. So medtech, is significantly involved in the 68% of the healthcare system that isn't represented by drugs or physicians. So that's an amazing potential for innovative companies to develop products and create revenue and potentially even improve the healthcare system. Because a lot of people focus on the parts of the healthcare system that usually aren't talked about. They talk about healthcare as patient and doctor. But this is actually what the healthcare system is. It's a very complex, integrated, multi-constituent system. So what we look for is in these interactions, we look for products or processes that reduce the transaction cost, whether that's improve the delivery, reduce the cost, or in some cases, if you have a product or technology that can actually remove one of the intermediaries, we think that's something that has significant value, and that shows up when you're looking at the value proposition. So some of our recent investments, these are the spaces that they sit in. So Baylis Medical, Exogenic, Patient Order Sets, and GE Pico. Their products or services or technologies address those particular interactions in that space. We do have other companies that do address that space, but it would get too busy. So here are all our current investments that we've made over the past year since we've launched. Some really great companies doing some really interesting things. A lot of potential revenue for these companies, and in some cases, some of these are addressing significant issues in the healthcare system where they're providing better care, better service at a lower cost. Basically, are we doing a good job? And we like to think that we are, but in the prior HDX programs, the bottom bar represents how much money we dispersed. The light blue bar is how much partner contribution. So how did we leverage that? So with the amount of money that we've put out so far, we're beating our old metrics and actually beating the metrics that the government has put to us. So we've seen an unbelievable uptake of the program, but we've also seen unbelievable capacity to get further investment by people who are not only partnering with those companies, but as well as the external investment. And so that's what the green represents. That represents sort of capital or other interest that came on top once we've sort of financed a particular company. And that's what we have basically as projected once we have dispersed all the money, probably in the next year. As well, the other thing we do is ecosystem development. We've done over 50 seminars, workshops, and talks, whether that's over export development, shred calculation, export expertise. We also do a lot of partnering events and referrals where we get together with a multinational company, say what are things that are interesting you, and we get together 5, 6 SME companies, put them together, and hopefully there's potential collaborations or licensing out of that. A lot of networking development with the groups you see on the right. We can't do it alone. We build off their expertise, they build off ours, and networking and knowledge is the way that these things happen. There's someone always has a better answer if you don't have it. Other things we're working on, John, our CEO, talked about Excite, pre-market technology assessment program, which is a pretty fantastic creation that's involving the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Economic Development and Trade, MRI, as well as OTAC and Mars. We're working with TMTA for FedDev support, and we have our annual open house in the fall, as well as white papers and articles that address particular issues that are affecting SMEs within Ontario and economic development within our space. So I recommend you go to hdx.ca and you can register, and that what we'll do is we won't spam you, but we'll provide information on our financing programs, give you updates on when we have events, seminars, as well as press releases on things that we've been doing, things that companies have been doing, or other activities that we believe are of interest to our constituent companies. And the very small arrow at the bottom is where we're located. So we're at the corner of Elm and University. Kitty corner from Sick Kids, and that's HDX. I hope that was helpful.
Does anyone have any questions for that?
So all the technology, it is commercial at this point, right, that you're funding?
Yeah, we sit past, so you have to have a prototype. So if the company has a prototype, we'll look at it. So anyway, from prototype to sort of market. And our financing is to get companies to a particular milestone. It's not just broad, here's 500,000, here's 750K, just go away and come back and hopefully everything's great. We want to see you to get to a milestone. Is that, that prototype development to the next stage, or is that it's going to get you so you can do clinical trials with that product, or we're going to finance you for those clinical trials so that when you're done, you're going to be able to put it out on the market and sell. Or in some cases, these are the milestones that other investors want to see for a Series A or potentially a Series B. So we're going to help them get to that point so that once that project's completed, they'll be able to pull in $2-4 million of venture financing that they need to sort of go to market. So we look at what those milestones are for the project financing, and it has to be past prototype development.
Do you fund NGOs or public institutions that have are trying to develop additional services that they can market to partner institutions and so on? as long as you can fit it within that business plan, which will generate revenue, would that be acceptable?
Well, we finance for-profit companies. They can partner with institutions, but generally we are sort of an engine to help create jobs within the sector. So we want to see, and one of the big things is we've seen an incredible demand. So the bar has risen quite significantly as what we've been looking at. It's been pretty fantastic on one hand. On the other hand, we don't have enough money to fund all those great companies. But no, so if they can show in partnership with that company that you're going to get to $5 million in revenue or something similar to that and create a significant number of jobs, then things are. Well, I mean, it just makes it a lot easier to go for-profit companies because that sort of, it is that, I mean, for lack of a better term, it is that mentality of, we're going to grow, sell, and have revenue and growth back to Ontario. So, I mean, it's much harder on a service company. So most of the, not most, all of them are product-based companies. Some of them provide services, but that's through maybe a software offering through a new business model. But all of them are product companies because they have that potential for high growth.
So our next presentation here is going to be from Green Centre Canada, and we have Roos Resendes, who is the executive director, to talk to us. Roos is an inventor, a scientist, and a practiced industry leader. Roos led the creation of Green Centre Canada, an exciting commercialization model that is the first of its kind in North America. In 2009, he was appointed the centre's executive director. His educational and professional background has given him the ability to bridge science and business together to create innovation. He's filled numerous leadership roles in research and business development with Bayer Material Science and Lanxess. During this time, he has also contributed to several patent families and has numerous technical and commercial publications and credits to presentations to his credit. Rory has to go straight after this, but he'll give you directions to the booth. But we should have some time at the end of this for a couple of quick questions. And with that, I'll hand over to Rory.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure. If anyone wants to come on in, come on in. I won't ask the audience questions, I swear. No? So it's great to be working in the chemical industry. That's what Green Centre Canada is all about. It's the world's largest manufacturing sector. It's responsible for about $3 trillion worth of commerce every single year. And it makes everything we do, everything we touch possible. As a matter of fact, I have a standing bet that no one has come and claimed yet that I will give anyone that can point to anything that they can touch that isn't made possible by the chemical industry. It is the central science, and it's one that's becoming increasingly important, especially as we scrutinize it under the lens of sustainability. And that's what Green Centre Canada is all about. We're looking at opportunities, technologies that have the potential of making a green impact on this sector to encourage sustainability. It's the whole notion of green chemistry. And green chemistry in a nutshell can be thought of as a healthy lifestyle for the chemical industry. So whereas the traditional approach has been focused on, okay, now we have a mess, now what do we do about that mess? Green chemistry philosophy invokes thoughts about, well, how can we prevent the formation of the mess in the first place? How can we shift towards renewable bio-based feedstocks as opposed to petrochemical non-renewable resources? How can we minimize energy utilization? How can we minimize waste production? That's at the heart of green chemistry. And fortunately for our organization, there's so much groundbreaking, disruptive research being done every single day in academic research labs, in the labs of SMEs, and even in the labs of some of the multinationals across Canada that have the potential to make that very significant green environmental and economic impact. And we look for those opportunities. And when we find those opportunities, we work with the researchers, with the owners of the intellectual property, and we develop that technology. We take a very hands-on approach to commercialization. We don't just talk about commercialization. We don't just fund commercialization. We do commercialization. And I'll get into specifically how we do that and how we take that hands-on approach. And one of the key elements of our model is that we are operated and governed with the assistance of our industry sponsors. And these are a group of multinational companies. Oops, not there yet. Before I tell you about our sponsors, let me tell you about the kinds of activities we do in a very general way. And the best way to present this is to think about as I call it, the long and winding road that separates the idea from the discovery And the academic community's got this down packed, right? Someone comes up with an idea, usually over a cocktail at the graduate club, and then they go into the lab and they set out to do the work, right? And usually within an afternoon, or sometimes within the period of a thesis, that idea is transformed into that discovery. But from the discovery to a product or a process launch in the marketplace, that's that long journey. People call it the valley of death. I'm tired of hearing that term, so we've coined our own term called the valley of ifs, right? Because there's all these ifs between a technology's potential and realizing that potential. And the way you overcome these ifs and start to realize value in the marketplace is to undertake a series of parallel activities, and I'm not going to go through the list, you can read it yourself, but the one thing that is clear is these are activities that are not in the sweet spot of the research community. Typically, the research community has no interest in undertaking these activities. At the end of the day, they do not garner academic publications. So quite frankly, they're simply not done. If you look to industry to take the discovery at its very early stage and bring it in-house and invest significant capital and human resources to advance that technology, you're going to have a battle on your hands. I mean, industries are becoming increasingly selective in what they work on. They're looking for more incremental improvements, incremental technologies that can be adapted in existing infrastructure. So if you are the peddler of new disruptive technologies, you've really got to demonstrate the value in a very tangible way. It cannot be a theoretical value proposition, it has to be a demonstrated value proposition. And by undertaking these activities, this is the kind of work we do in our facilities, we're able to do that. And I put this picture up here not just to illustrate that we hire very good looking people at our facility, but this is the proof in we take a hands-on approach to commercialization. We have a 10,000 square foot facility, most of which is lab space. And in this lab space with our team of scientists, our commercial directors, our support staff, including communications and financial management, we actually do commercialization, whether it's product development, whether it's application development, whether it's IP management, synthetic methodology development, whatever you need to do to turn that theoretical value proposition into a quantified business opportunity. And that's going to make the commercialization journey a much more enjoyable one. And like I mentioned earlier, I skipped ahead to this, is a key part of what we do and a key part of our success is made possible because of our industry sponsors. These are multinational chemical corporations, some of which have 100 million in revenue, some of which have 100 billion in revenue. These are organizations that are actually paying to be at the table with us. They are helping us select technologies and they're helping us formulate the commercialization strategy and execute on that strategy. So we're building in real world relevance, real world, criteria, metrics into all of our activities, maximizing the chances of us not only identifying the right opportunities to work on, but making sure that those right opportunities get into the marketplace. So again, an overview of the kinds of technology, kinds of activities we undertake. Again, the theme here, this is something that's not done in the academic community, and that's the disconnect. The academic community is providing us with all these disruptive technologies, yet they're not willing and not equipped to engage in the kinds of activities to bring these to market. So that's enough about what we do. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we've done. I was here about 2 years ago and I gave an overview of Green Center Canada, and I shared a more detailed presentation about our mechanisms, what we do. And we're at a stage now, we're entering our third year of operation. We're actually starting to see some of that tangible evidence of impact. The first technology is a technology we sourced from Lakehead University. It was actually this fellow right here, Bruce Holmes. Wave to the folks, Bruce. Bruce Holm at the Tech Transfer Office at Lakehead University brought this technology to our attention. A cement additive technology. It's a chemical additive package that is isolated from the aqueous waste stream of the pulp and paper industry. This is all sounding very green, but more importantly, when you add this additive package to standard concrete formulations, you're able to significantly reduce the amount of Portland cement in those formulations while not compromising any of the other physical properties. Now, you take a moment and think about the potential around that. And this is how we started our journey. How can we think about what's the potential around this? For those of you that don't know, the cement industry is the single largest contributor to CO2 emissions next to transportation. Every kilogram of cement that's used in many of the monoliths that we have in downtown Toronto contributes 1 kilogram of CO2 into the atmosphere. So if you have a technology that can achieve the same performance, but reduce the amount of Portland cement content, you can imagine that the economic and environmental impact will be significant. And that's exactly what we've been able to determine that this technology does. We've spent a lot of money, we've exercised a lot of effort, both at Green Center and with the principal investigators team at Lakehead University, to demonstrate what's summarized on this chart here, where when we take a 40 megapascal concrete formulation and we add our fairy dust cement additive package, we can reduce the cement requirements by 20%. That's about a $2 cost savings or 75 kilograms of CO2 reductions per cubic meter of concrete. Expand that to the urban landscape and imagine the impact that can have. In a 50 megapascal formulation, the effect is enhanced even further, where we can realize a 30% reduction in cement and 200 kilograms of CO2 reduction per cubic meter. Significant environmental, significant economic impact, and I think it highlights nicely the value that we bring to the table. This was a very clever idea, full of potential. Because of the work we did in collaboration with the host institution, we're now at a point where we have a quantified business opportunity. And I'll tell you, it's been a very easy journey putting this in the hands of a licensee. We're talking to some of the largest chemical companies in the world to negotiate an exclusive license to this technology because of this type of effect. And I'm just going to quickly go over this, but this is just another way to illustrate that effect. And here we're looking at a standard formulation, a control formulation, and additive 1 and additive 1+2, our next generation additive package, which sees the same amount of Portland cement in the formulation, and you can see an enhancement in the strength. So we're very excited about this technology, and we predict that this will be in the hands of a multinational supplier of additive packages into the cement industry before the end of this year. So another technology that we're quite proud of is a technology called switchable hydrophilicity solvents. And for those of us in the room that aren't chemists, I'll ignore that for now. And I'll just give you a quick overview of what this technology does. And more importantly, this is the state in which the technology was presented to us. The beakers weren't as clean as what's on the screen. But essentially, when you take this solvent, it behaves like any other traditional organic solvent. Not much to look at, clear, colorless. And like any other traditional solvent, if you were to introduce water into the system, you're going to get that oil and vinegar effect. The solvent is not going to mix with the water, right? Now, the clever thing about this invention is that as soon as you introduce carbon dioxide into the system, you invoke a reversible chemical reaction that converts that solvent system into one that's very water compatible. So essentially, you collapse that two-phase system into a one-phase system. And as long as you keep a headspace of CO2 in that system, it'll stay that way for as long as you need it to stay that way. But when you want to switch it back to its intrinsic form, i.e. a form that is incompatible with water and phase separate, all you have to do is bubble air through that system. And you're basically driving off the CO2, converting the system back to its original state, and getting a two-phase system. So this is another example of the kinds of technology you see, and it's really clever. And as a chemist, you look at that and say, well, isn't that neat? But at the end of the day, who cares? Who cares that you can do this? What value does it represent in the marketplace? And with a technology as disruptive as this, it didn't take us that long to figure that out. And as a matter of fact, I mean, so far, the range of applications that we can imagine for this technology is limited only by our imagination. One of those applications is a green solvent-based cleaning. Solvents are typically not used in cleaning applications, and I use that term cleaning very broadly, as you'll see with a couple specific examples, because while they're very effective at dissolving or isolating the contaminant from the surface of an insoluble substrate, the problem is that you can't re-isolate that solvent or re-isolate the contaminant very effectively without introducing a tremendous amount of energy. You have to distill off that solvent. And the economics usually don't work. And the actual green thing to do is not to remediate it in the first place. So, but yeah, we've developed a technology where at almost ambient conditions, we can change the solubility parameters of that solvent such that we can isolate that contaminant, recover it, and recover the solvent in a process which consumes up to 85% less energy than the typical technologies. So we've looked at this in a number of applications. I think one of the ones that really excites me is the use of this technology in oil sands. Oil sands processing. We all know about the tailing ponds. We all know about the energy requirements to process oil sands. We've taken this technology. We've taken a sample of oil sands, as you see there on your left. We've contacted with our solvent system. We isolate clean, free-flowing sand that has an organic residual content of only about 2.2 weight%. The traditional approach is leave anywhere from 3 to 7 weight% of oil on the sand. That's the fundamental problem with the oil sand sector and the tailing ponds, is their organic contaminants. we can reintroduce this sand back into the ecosystem without any negative effect. And of course, importantly, we can isolate the bitumen, the value-added component of that cleaning process. In effect, this is a cleaning process. We can also clean things like drill cuttings, offshore drilling operations that produce these cuttings. These cuttings are coated with oil, with seawater, with drill cutting fluids. Same thing, it's a burden to properly treat and dispose of these cuttings, but we can not only clean the sand, as you can see in the right, but we can actually isolate the drilling fluid and actually repurpose it and reuse it. So these are the kinds of activities that we've done. There's just some other application areas we're looking at, and because we've been able to quantify the impact and the opportunity around this platform technology, we're able to create a new company. So this is another one of our outputs, switchable solutions. Chemistry for the future. All right, it's opening up avenues, market opportunities that were untouchable by traditional solvent technologies because of the energy requirement. We can now access them, and it's an exciting potential, as you can imagine, with an oil sands application being in our line of sight. So that's it in a nutshell. That's what we do. This is some of the things we've done. I invite you to visit our booth at, I think we're number 1036. Is that right, Lindsay? 1042. Thank you. So where there are much smarter people than I am there to answer your questions. And you can follow us on our website, Facebook, and Twitter. And if there's any time, I'll take any questions that might be available. It was crystal clear. Here's one.
Do you have any experience in conversion of biomass and MSW into biofuels or biogas for energy, for conversion into electricity and all that downstream?
A little bit. Actually, with this last technology that I spoke of, we have actually looked at bio-oil or seed oil extraction. So, I know there's been a lot of activity around converting things like soybean oil to biodiesel. We've been able to demonstrate that we can, in one step, in one process step, we can extract the oil from the biomass. We can then transesterify that oil, and then we can invoke the chemical switch that I talked to you about and actually isolate the biodiesel in one step. So it's one of the things we're working on. Is that commercially available? Not yet, but we're actually looking for partners to help develop. We're aggressively going after the oil sands opportunity as well as post-consumer plastics recycling, remediation and recycling. That's just two of the many things we can do. So we're trying to monetize the value in those other applications through strategic partnerships.
Hi. Thank you for a very informative talk. I'm really excited about the kind of work you're doing. You mentioned IP management. Mm-hmm. Do you? So when you say IP management, do you provide funding for IP? Do you have access to, I don't know, programs that help fund IP for startup companies?
Sure.
Companies?
So we have two agents on staff, two agents that are registered in Canada and the U.S. So they actually, the two of them function as our IP management team. With that team, we also have a very, very generous patent budget. And one thing I didn't mention because time did not allow was that when we work on a technology, we've licensed the technology and we're developing the technology, we cover all of the costs. We pay for everything. So when you're talking about IP management, not only do we manage the process, do we develop a strategy, do we decide how we're going to populate that patent estate, we actually pay for all of the formal activities along that progression.
Okay, and in that case, I'm guessing you would take equity in a company as well.
We could do that. So when we work with companies specifically, with the academic community, it's typically we license and then do this work. But when we're working with an SME or a larger company, we can provide those services in exchange for equity or in exchange for some sort of future consideration.
Okay, thank you.
We're now going to hear from the Ontario Power Authority in the form of Julia McNally. Julie is the Director of Market Transformation of the Conservation Division of the Ontario Power Authority. The Market Transformation team identifies the next generation of conservation programs, policies and technologies, and is known for its innovation, pilot projects, and relevant research. Julia.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. A small group, but I hope a dedicated and interested group. The purpose of my talk today is to tell you a little bit about the Technology Fund and how we can work together to bring smarter ideas into the Ontario market. I'm going to touch on 3 topics: a quick overview of the OPA, a little bit of discussion about our market transformation approach, and then I'll talk about the Technology Fund. Now, I didn't ask. There we go. So let me start then talking about the Ontario Power Authority. We, as many of you may know, we are responsible for ensuring a sustainable, reliable, and cost-effective electricity system in Ontario for the 13 million people who live here. We have 3 main responsibilities. First and foremost is we have a responsibility to facilitate conservation in Ontario. Second, to plan the electricity system. And third, to procure new supply. My talk is going to focus, of course, on conservation, but let me spend a few moments just talking about the other parts of the OPA. First, I'll start with planning. As many of you know, the Ontario government released its long-term energy plan last fall. This plan sets out a blueprint for Ontario moving forward, looking at continuing development and modernization of our electricity system, and includes some fairly specific direction and some really cutting-edge direction around nuclear, natural gas, renewable sources of energy, as well as conservation. At the Ontario Power Authority, we're busy now taking that blueprint and turning it into an integrated power system plan. The overarching goal of that plan remains to create a reliable, sustainable, and cost-effective electricity system. The second major area that we're responsible for is procurement of new supply. I think the procurement process that is best known right now is our feed-in tariff for renewable energy. And the feed-in tariff offers, as you may know, guaranteed long-term prices for renewable energy with guaranteeing reasonable rates of return for producers. We also have procurements on natural gas, hydroelectric. And now, certainly foremost in my heart is conservation. And we've been working at conservation in Ontario as the OPA since 2005, 2006. And we've had a great deal of success in that time. And I'm just going to talk about a few of the numbers that point to our success. Over the last number of years, we've collected more than 275,000 old and inefficient appliances. We've had more than 170,000 participants in our residential DR program. And we're reaching about 125,000 small businesses with our power-saving blitz. So far, peak demand has been reduced by more than 1,700 megawatts since 2005. So to put this in another way, all of the initiatives underway have saved power equivalent to 77,000 households, which is the equivalent to a town about the size of Sarnia. So pretty good success for a new activity in this sector. We have a new suite of programs in market. They've been redesigned with a real emphasis on customer focus and customer accessibility. If you're interested in our programs, you can find information on our website, saveonenergy.ca. So at the OPA, we're interested in saving energy right now through programs, but we're also interested in making sure that we do this in a sustainable long-term way. So we've adopted a market transformation approach, which looks at making conservation and energy efficiency a business-as-usual choice in Ontario. To achieve this goal, we're planning to work in 3 areas simultaneously. So we're working, and if you look at the chart here, over in the dark blue, we're looking at stimulating innovation to make sure we have a pipeline of new ideas, technologies, and programs going into the future. We're working on accelerating market penetration of products, services, so that's the middle part of the S to fusion curve. And then we're also working to lock in energy efficiency through code, standards, and culture change. What that means on the ground for the OPA is that we have programs and activities in each one of those areas. So in terms of stimulating innovation, we have a conservation fund and the technology fund that I will talk about in a moment. To accelerate market penetration of products and services, we have a whole suite of programs in market. And we provide incentives for capital purchases, but we also provide support for capability building for key account managers, for energy managers. So really looking at a holistic approach to energy efficiency. And then the last area, in terms of locking in conservation, we have an active program supporting research and development around codes and standards, as well as a large portfolio of awareness-raising activities to help build a culture of conservation. So as I said, we're looking at a long-term sustainable approach to energy efficiency. So what I want to do now is drill down on the technology fund to help give you some more information about how we can work together. I had a few slides on the conservation fund. I'm going to skip over those, but if people have questions at the end, we can talk about the conservation fund. This fund is focused on supporting new program ideas and new policy ideas, so programs for energy efficiency. So in terms of our technology fund, we have a mandate to help accelerate the market launch of technologies. We really have two major criteria when we're looking at what technologies to support. The first is that the technology needs to benefit Ontario's electricity consumers. And what we mean by that is that it needs to help us reach our targets, our conservation targets. And the second major criteria is that the technology needs to be pre-commercial or facing barriers to commercialization. So just to drill down on that, what we're looking at are technologies that have 5 or less years to market, and there must be a market for the technology in Ontario. So that's kind of the higher level criteria that we're looking at in the program. The Technology Fund provides support in 4 levels, really taking technologies from lab to the market. So as you can see from the graph here, we're looking at, we have a technology demonstration fund line. Here we're looking at, the objective is that performance is validated through commercial scale operation, and we have a maximum of up to $500,000 for that type of project. We also have carved out a specific line for industrial process, saw that as an important niche in Ontario. And here the project outcome, as you can see, is an industrial process or technology and innovation, again, that is demonstrated in the market. Again, here, maximum support is $500,000. Moving back a little closer to the lab, we provide technology development support, so helping to suss out viability of new technologies. Here we're looking at $250,000. And then finally, deeper back into the lab, we are providing support to applied research up to a maximum of $100,000. So again, really seeing the importance of supporting the arc of technology development from lab to the market. We've been fortunate to be partners with many projects over the last number of years. I just thought we would profile one, the Regen Energy. And here is a product, again, we worked with the proponent and many others to bring this project from lab to the market. This was a plug-and-play controller for energy use. When it was tested in market, we found peak demand reductions of at least 25%, so big benefit for the electricity consumer in Ontario. And our support was leveraged by Regen with funding from the OCE. So a nice example of the kind of project we're looking for. So I'm just going to spend a few moments on the kind of nuts and bolts of our application process. You can see the schema on the slide. Basically, we're using a round-based process for intake, milestone-based, deadline-based. We're really focused on ensuring ratepayer value. We've got a number of steps in the process, starting with a submission for an EOI, then development of a proposal if the EOI is approved by the OPA, business and technical reviews, a grant award committee that works with us to determine which projects to move forward, and then contracting, reporting. The entire process from start to end takes about 4 months, And we'd like to take that amount of time to ensure due diligence, because we have to protect ratepayer value. We have all of this information is nicely laid out on the Ontario Power Authority website, which will take you to the Technology Fund. Also, we have here today Jenny Mullinen, who is the manager of our fund. And if there are questions, she's here now and also will be here, I think, for the rest of the day. So I'm just going to close by saying, certainly for the Ontario Power Authority, innovation is a key part of reaching our long-term goals. We need to have new ideas coming through the pipe to ensure that we reach our aggressive goals in Ontario. So I will leave it there, and if there's any questions for either myself or Jenny about the fund, we're happy to take them.
Okay, thank you. I just want to know here, there is an open public for anyone to apply. So, for example, it's from university, from industry partner. So what kind of the requirement of apply here? Anybody can apply this one?
Yeah, so anybody with a good idea that will benefit Ontario's ratepayers and is pre-commercial can apply. We like to leverage other funds, so you need to come to us with some partners so that we can be leveraging funds.
Thanks.
Our next partner presentation comes courtesy of Coral Communications Enabled Applications, or Coral CEA, or Coral C. And we're going to have Brian Forbes present us. Brian's the executive director of Coral C. Prior to Coral C, Brian co-founded several successful companies in the communications-enabled applications market. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, David. I understand I'm the only one sitting here or standing here right now between you and the door, so I'll try to be quick. Coral C is the way it's pronounced, and it's a new sort of innovative way of approaching innovation and collaboration, or commercialization, excuse me. So I've put together a bit of a presentation. I always like to start with people who are, smarter than I am. So I want to start with a couple of giants in the industry. First is a quote from Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs says that innovation is what distinguishes between a leader and a follower. And as I walk around the OCE presentation, I'm struck by the amount of innovation that exists here in Canada and how we need to establish a leadership role globally with regards to the export of this technology. The good thing here, the good news is we can do that through innovation. The Apple computer, we see as they went through a transformation from a company that almost went out of business to being the leading company now in terms of technology profile, one of the most recognized brands in the world, was all because of their innovation strategy. And I think that's something that we as Canadians need to adopt as well. Joseph Schumpeter, who could be titled the granddaddy of innovation, basically has said there is no innovation without commercialization. I'm always excited about meeting with very optimistic entrepreneurs who, built some new mousetrap and believe that the world is going to build a path to their door in order for them to sell their product. Commercialization is when somebody actually reaches into their back pocket and says, the innovation that you brought to me represents some value. It represents a benefit that I'm willing to pay for. And until you get to that point, until somebody actually pays for the innovation that you have, or you haven't really innovated. So as I walk around and talk to people, and as I listen to some of the presentations that are done, I think the one thing that we see, or we can all agree with here in Canada, is that commercialization is hard. It requires roll up your sleeves, hard work, going out meeting with customers and with partners, the ability to kind of present your value proposition. It's interesting that often commercialization gets supplanted by capitalization, and sometimes the capital markets that we have, they're not interested in the amount of investment that's required to do commercialization, to do the marketing, to do all the hard work that's necessary. We're finding in this current generation that we're in that sometimes the commercialization investment is actually more than the investment that it took to create the technology. And so, it's hard work, but it's necessary to do before you can complete your innovation. So my question and my thesis is basically this: how can we apply Canadian innovation towards commercialization? How can we work hard, or work smart, excuse me, instead of working hard? How can we help each other to commercialize our innovation, our products and services, and distribute them globally? And that's what we like to think that Coral Sea is. It's a bit of a different economic development initiative. Coral Sea is an open application developer ecosystem focused on commercialization of CEA through open innovation. That's quite a mouthful. I'm going to try to explain what each of those terms mean over the next couple of slides. But just in terms of ecosystem, you kind of get an idea of the coral notion of building many little organisms, building a greater ecosystem. In terms of Coral Sea, we're a technology-neutral, non-profit, member-driven organization. So we're a collection of developers who all work together to help each other commercialize their product. Normally when I put up Coral Sea as a title, the first question I get from people is, what is CEA? Now CEA means a certain thing to an entrepreneur. If you're to talk to an entrepreneur, they say, we have a list of 3 things. And if you can take that list of 3 things and put it into a CEA acronym, I'm fine with that. And so those 3 things are, we need cash, we need experience or skills or tools, and we need access to opportunity. So if you're going to talk to me about commercialization, talk to me about how you can help me in one of these 3 areas. And Coral Sea does this for entrepreneurs, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we talk about open innovation. But the Coral Sea definition is on communication-enabled applications. So we're a sector-based innovation center. That means that we focus on certain technology. That technology is communications-enabled applications. And so the next question that I normally get is, what is a communication-enabled application? So that is an application that has become social. It is an application that can now, in an unsolicited way, reach out and contact you. And it does that for the purposes of information exchange or participating in business decision making. So it no longer depended upon you to come to a terminal or a PC or a laptop or a tablet and find some information. It reaches out to you and tells you that there's something critical that's about to happen. And by enabling real-time communications, applications now can decrease time, wait time, for example, in healthcare with regards to scheduling appointments. You can reduce costs to attain or distribute critical information that's needed for business, healthcare, and social markets. So that's what we determine from a technology perspective to be CEA, but we also are focused on the entrepreneur's definition of CEA as well. And we believe that's met by what we call a new term, open innovation. And I want to describe that a bit, of what we do to facilitate open innovation amongst developers. This is a bit of a busy chart, but it shows everything that we offer at Coral Sea in one diagram. And this combines both the entrepreneur's notion of how do I get cash, how do I get skills and experience and tools, how do I get access to opportunity, and also our definition of how do we develop new communication-enabled applications. At the bottom we have what we call our Coral Sea Developer Portal. It's a social network that developers can get together, they can share experiences, share knowledge, both in terms of technology, also in terms of business models. They have access to system tools that they couldn't purchase themselves. For example, a startup entrepreneur probably cannot go out and purchase a $2 million switch, but they have access to the switch at Coral Sea, and they can do a bunch of development on top of that switch. On top of the development portal, we have a multi-tenant private cloud. It's a partition cloud that is available only to the member. The member controls the access list to who can come in and do any sort of co-development on that cloud. We provide also integrated test facilities and system tools that they can use to test their product prior to going to market. On top of that is the complex little graphic of what we call our software repository of CE platforms and extensions. This is code that's already been developed that they can reuse. Our developer members can reuse this code. It helps them accelerate their time to market. It helps them to decrease their costs. What happens that really kind of is interesting is when you get what I call the network effect, where developers are helping other developers produce new product and new value. On top of all that, at the very top is what we call our Coral Sea product and services portfolio. They're services that we offer to our members to help them fill in any commercialization gaps that they have. And again, that helps them go to market quicker. These member services include platform services where we provide them with platforms they can develop on. Think Apple, think Google, think Facebook, think Salesforce, AppExchange. These are common platforms that our developers can build new extensions on top of and monetize those extensions and basically distribute them globally. We also have production services where we do develop and test partitions for integration and testing. This is what I call our tough love, where we basically will come in and test one of our members' developers' products. He can use that testing as certification as he goes to a customer and says basically, you know, my product does what it says it does at capacity, at performance, under stress testing, etc. We do what we call project services, which are both public and private funding. We can fund a certain project as you're looking to build a certain capability. We can do that through re-granting. We also do that through private funding. We have multinational companies who are looking to engage developers in our community to help them build new product and services. We have professional services that we offer to our members, which are just-in-time wholesale services, wholesale professional services. As an example, we have a member who just won a big account, and it required a lot of implementation. They were just a two-man shop. And so they came to Coral Sea. We said, look, we'll provide you with just-in-time professional services at a wholesale rate. What we want you to do is to resell that professional services to your customer. So it made our member look bigger than he was and enabled him to land an account where just the professional services piece was $1 million sale for him. And so, you know, he was able to then roll out his software into 2,000 clinics. We also offer promotion services, which is sales collateral, messaging, and branding of product or service value, helping our members focus on what their distinct value proposition is. Open innovation is a new interesting terminology that's coming out. Basically, it combines best practices from open source and commercial development to share risk and return. So we're all familiar with Wikinomics, the contribution to platforms in order to decrease costs. We're seeing new economic models like Apple are developing where software is opened up. People can develop and monetize software on top of those platforms and distribute it globally. That's shared return. It benefits all parties in the exchange. We see developers reducing risk by opening their software and their business models to enhance their product value and return and compete effectively in the global markets. It's a bit counterintuitive to what we normally think about in terms of proprietary protection of IP, but it actually is a working model, and I think a very viable model for Canadians. Open innovation also enables business ecosystems to form and accelerate commercialization and enjoy profitable business growth. And we have developed, in the short time that we've been working, we've already developed a number of very interesting ecosystems. These are combinations of public and private companies, industry advocates who are all working towards a common objective. We have, and interestingly, just for fun, they're all CEA enabled applications. So underneath communication enabled applications, we also have care enabled applications, which are consumer-centric treatment coordination systems. We have clean-enabled applications that help remote monitoring and environmental control. We have collaborative-enabled applications that help enterprises produce outcomes through web conferencing systems. And we have community-enabled applications, which are socially responsible technology applications. For example, we're helping the Canadian Hard of Hearing with captioning on web-based conferencing systems. The other news about Coral Sea, in addition to our cute name, is the fact that we're a startup too. So we really resonate with the members who come to us. We have funded 23 companies in our 9 months that we've been in operations. We received $9.3 million in public funding, matched by $29 million in private investment, both in terms of in-kind and cash. We're a collaboration between public, academic, industry, and advocates in the communication-enabled application space. We've funded a total of $600,000 worth of projects thus far, and that has stimulated $2.4 million of in-kind contribution. 14 of the companies that we have sponsored are brand new startups, and they have created in total a number of 57 new jobs, which I know is important to the economy here in Ontario. But most importantly for me, which excites me, is that the network effect has begun to happen where business-to-business connections are being made and new product and services are being developed far quicker than they could be developed if our members tried to do it on their own. We're already expanding across Ontario. We started in Ottawa. We're very aggressively here in Toronto and Points West, and we're getting a lot of good feedback from developer companies here in the Toronto area. Briefly, our investors are market leaders in open commercial communication software together with academic industry and government. We're a sector innovation center. We have members from every market level, not just startups, but also multinationals, which is interesting. We have from independent contributors to CEA entrepreneurs to commercial and CEA corporations to strategic companies who approach us and ask us to help them deploy open innovation as something to augment their product development. They often become leaders or champions in the ecosystem, developing new services and products for different ecosystems. So the final slide is, how do I engage? And we're not here to tell you how to commercialize, we're here to help you do commercialization. And so our thought is what we can see, we can do. So we just welcome you to kind of approach us and we can talk and introduce Coral Sea to you.
So we're going to start the last session of the day here. And I'm going to introduce in a second Kevin Tuer. Kevin's the Managing Director of the Canadian Digital Media Network and Vice President of Digital Media for Communitech. Kevin's held several engineering and senior management positions in high-tech industry over the past 15 years, including Senior Research Engineer with Computing Devices Canada, now General Dynamics Canada, as well as co-founder and CTO of Handshake VR. So without further ado, Kevin, thank you.
Thank you very much, David. And we've got a small but engaged crowd, so I'm good with that. We'll go ahead with this, and we'll see what comes of it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Communitech. I don't know those who are familiar with Communitech out of Waterloo region, but simply stated, we help tech companies start, grow, and to succeed. So we're really an enabling organization. We're about 15 years old. And over the last few years, we've gone through a little bit of transformation focused around digital media, and that's going to be a big focus of what I talk about today. So because of our growth, we did start as, for the most part, a regional organization, but we do have a provincial mandate, and more recently, through the Canadian Digital Media Network, we also have a national mandate. And it's all revolved, again, around helping our companies start, grow, and succeed. So a lot of what we're doing is focused on this thing called digital media, and our definition of digital media is a lot different maybe than the traditional. We're much more than just film and TV. We are also, I guess, any data that's created digitally, stored, exchanged digitally across the network fits our definition. So obviously it's pretty broad, and why digital media? And it's simply stated, it's a huge opportunity. And more so than that, not only is it a really good opportunity for our companies, but we have what it takes in order to take a global leadership role in digital media. So we, again, representing the needs and interests of our companies, are doing that and are moving that initiative ahead. So mostly what I want to talk about is something that's come out of this new digital media initiative called the Communitech Hub, Digital Media and Mobile Accelerator, which was, it's located in the Lang Tanning Company building. It's a 150-year-old tanning company building that, in Kitchener, and has been repurposed for high tech, established around in October 2010, so we're fairly new at this. But basically, we're an acceleration center, so what we focus on is working with stakeholders in order to help commercialization for Ontario in terms of digital media. And we support startups, we support SMEs, we support large multinationals as well. So we've got a little bit of a different engagement model from an incubation model, and I think that's what makes us different, and we're showing some early signs of success around that. So we really are about creating new businesses, helping create new businesses, helping connect entrepreneurs or companies with the resources that they need in order to start, grow, and succeed. And that's really what it comes down to. And because Ontario does have a very vibrant pool of technology and capability in this area, then it's a natural place for us to help build that ecosystem. So as it stands right now, we are Communitech Hub. It's a 30,000 square foot facility. We have just over 28 startup companies engaged as it is. We have our 5 leading multinational companies engaged, 14 innovation partners. So these are service providers, lawyers, accountants, government innovation partners, 3 post-secondary institutions. And what I mean by engaged is that they've taken physical space in our facility and they have people there on a regular basis. So you can look at the hub as being a high-tech sandbox. It's a place where innovation can occur. It's a place where relationships are created. It's a place where people can bump into one another often. And again, it's just about proximity. It's about creating those opportunities for people to get together and look at innovative opportunities and partnerships. So in terms of what we offer, it's really pretty much turnkey. If you're an early stage company, you go to our website, you apply for application, there's an intake process where we'll sit down and talk about your business and what your needs are. If there's a good fit with what we offer, then we'll look at providing space. And really what it is, everything's provided. You basically come in with your computer and your ideas, you plug in and you're ready to go. And so everything else is taken care of. So it's the co-op office part of it, but much more than that. There's a lot of programming that's being offered around that. And in fact, we're partnered with the Accelerator Center, who are delivering the Accelerator program. It's a suite of services and products to help our early stage companies to excel and to meet their goals in a much quicker fashion. And there is a report carding aspect to it as well. So we hold you accountable to things that you say you're going to do. So another big part of what we're doing is engaging our large multinational or large SME partners in this, because we feel they're an integral part of the ecosystem. So we have RIM, we have OpenText, we have AGFA, we have Christie Digital, we have Desire to Learn located within the facility, people located there on a regular basis. And it's not just about them providing value to the early stage companies. There's a sort of a bilateral value exchange, because they get to work with these early stage companies, and many of those companies are very active in terms of the acquisition side of things. So they're very anxious to see what new innovations are going on. And so it's a very strong value proposition for our industry partners to be there as well. And through all of this, we also have all the suite of services that Communitech offers. We have peer-to-peer groups and things of that sort. The Venture Services Group is a group of, I believe we're up to 7 entrepreneurs in residence. So they're CEOs, CTOs, CIOs, whatever, that are between gigs, and they've come and docked with the organization to provide mentorship to our early stage companies. So that group right now currently is working with about 200 to 300 companies, early stage companies, and this is well beyond those that live within our facility. We offer those services through the Venture Services Group to any company that wants to come and get some advice and some help. And again, it's not just about Waterloo Region in this case. Everything that we're offering here, we're looking at a cross-province mandate in order to deliver that. So that's an important part of it. It is about building a cluster for digital media in Ontario. And to that end, we do have some partners in that. Mars is a node. I mentioned the Canadian Digital Media Network is a cross-Canada network of commercialization centers like the Hub, focused on commercialization. In Ontario, we have Mars as a node on our network. We have NGen, which is out of St. Catharines, which is very focused on more of the traditional digital media stuff on our network as well. Looking for partners in Ottawa, and as with the government partners, and we're rolling out that program across the province. In terms of things that are going on, we're trying very hard to offer some unique programming within the facility. I often say the building is 4 walls. What really matters are the people that are in those 4 walls and the programs that are there to help bring them together. So we started a few things. One of these things is we call Collision Days. So what we do is that we bring a company to town or an organization. We promote it to the entire community and say, so-and-so is here. Come down, meet them at the Hub, have a chat, and see if there's anything that that resonates between the two of you, and then you can take that and build a relationship out of that. So In 2011 alone, we've had 20 to 30 of those, and we're going to ramp that up. And it's a great way to make an introduction for companies. And I think tomorrow, in fact, we've got LG coming in, so we're slowly building our brand, and we're bringing in some very good companies because they've seen what's going on there, and they want to be a part of it and at least explore what the opportunities are. So it's not just our local large companies that are looking for innovation and tapping into that innovation ecosystem. We're starting to get, in many cases, we're starting to get international awareness. We also have in the same sort of light capital collision days, because one thing we hear from our companies all the time is that they need capital to build their businesses. So we're trying to be very proactive in that way. So in the same way, we'll bring capital investors to town. We'll announce it to the community. We'll set up some specific meetings for those capital investors so that they have some good one-on-ones, but we open it up to the community as a whole so they can come and explore potential relationships with these funders as well. And what's interesting there is that, again, we're starting to attract attention from outside of Canada. And there's not much venture capital around Canada as it is anyway, so it's a good thing that we are. So U.S. investors are starting to show some interest in coming up. They've made some investments in the Waterloo region and Ontario as a whole, and they're looking to do more of that, and we're looking to support them whatever way that we can in order to achieve that. Another couple things that we're doing that are slightly different. One's the Apps Factory. So as the name sounds, what we've done is we've hired some co-op students for the next 4 months. And we're given the mandate that we're going to create some apps, some mobile apps. And we're not saying what platform it needs to be for. But what we have is we put out a call for proposals and said, you know, we went to hospitals, not-for-profits, for-profits, NGOs, and said, you know, do you want an app developed? If you do, submit an application, and we'll consider it. So without really promoting it that widely, we got 24 applications for 4 spots. And so that started in May. We're starting the development of that. And the reason we're doing that is because what we're seeing is that there's a thirst and a demand for app development. But for the most part, we see that the demand is far outweighing the supply. We're doing this not so much to, you know, create a business that competes with those that create the apps, but instead bringing the talent together with the need, bringing some apps to a proof of concept perspective, and then connecting those that want to take that app to the production level with those providers that can actually take that to a production level. So we're really linking, which is a core aspect, or excuse me, core characteristic of Communitech, is that linking and that creating of relationships. So we are putting out another call in June 2011 for September to December. So if anybody wants to submit an app, then by all means do so, and you can do that through our website. And another thing that we're looking at doing in terms of promoting business development is a soft landings program. Since we have facilities for early stage companies, we're looking at setting up an exchange program with other jurisdictions that have facilities and early stage companies, and we'll basically do a swap. And it's kind of like the Y Combinator model for those who are familiar with it. But we'll put companies that are, in the Valley, or we'll put them in Singapore, or we'll put them in the UK or whatever, for those companies that would find advantage in being located in those areas for 3 to 6 months, and basically helping to build those linkages to help build their businesses. Because one thing's for sure, I think we can all agree on, that the world is indeed flat, and we need to, every one of the companies, whether they're one person or 1,000 people or 1 million people, need to think globally. And so that's really what we're trying to promote. And that's really, in essence, as part of the Canadian mandate through the Canadian Digital Media Network, is to promote the creation of that soft landings program. Because digital media is increasingly more about the content, it used to be a time, I guess it was, that the tools were important and the tools took precedence. Now that we've come to that point where there are lots of tools out there, it's now the era of the content creator. And so as part of that, we feel in order to generate good content and to help our companies create good content, we need to make sure that we bring the arts community into the technology community. So we're running some programs out of the hub again that focuses on bringing that art community into our facility and taking advantage of connections that they can build and providing them access to platforms that they can build on. But also from the technology side of things, for our technology entrepreneurs to really look at the artistic entrepreneurs, form those partnerships so that they can gain appreciation for both sides of building a business. And already we are, starting to show some international impact with the kind of interest that we're generating. Not only are we a facility where collaboration can occur. One of the fun things that we have in our facility is at Christie Digital. For those who are familiar with Christie Digital, we have a 3D immersive environment platform within the facility. So this is what I call the modern day equivalent of a holodeck from Star Trek. So it's a room where you project on 4 or 5 different walls. You put glasses on, you step in the room, and basically you're living in a virtual environment. Expensive piece of equipment. It's really used for people at the R&D stage, but what we're doing is we're providing access to this platform to entrepreneurs. We're lowering the barrier so that they can get access to these kind of resources and, again, help them accelerate their business. And so since October 2010, our launch date, this statistic surprised me a little bit, but we've had over 4,000 visitors come to our facility, and that's only ramping up. And we love another 4,000, another 400,000 more. So for all those here, I extend an open invitation to come down and see what we're doing, because in many cases you have to see, you have to experience before you can completely understand. And I think you'll see that there's some good stuff going on. We've had some successes since then. Since we opened up, we've had our first graduate from our program in less than 5 months. We've had RIM going on some activity in terms of acquisition. And also, we've also filled our facility, and we're expanding already. We've taken another 13,000 square feet, and we're going to build more of the same. So basically, that's it. I'm a little bit over, but there are my contact statistics and access points. So again, feel free to reach out and come on down to the hub and check us out. Thank you very much.